Live from the National News Studio, Sri Lanka.
Live from the National News Studio. Welcome to the news. Together with Sharon Masgrenius, I'm Clifford Richards. First of all, a look at the headlines.
33 detainees of Kandakadu continue to remain missing. 10-litre quota for passenger transport three-wheelers gets underway from today. The President meets the British Prime Minister while travelling in Egypt. 10 suspects apprehended with 331 kilograms of heroin. Dhanushka Gunatilaka loses bail application in Australia. Farmers lament over empty paddy storages. 19 persons killed when an aircraft fell into Victoria Lake. On to the stories in detail now, starting off with local news. President Ranil Wickremesinghe has requested the President of Egypt and the Secretary General of the United Nations to convene a meeting of agricultural ministers of all countries in order to assess the food requirements in the coming 2 years.
Well, the President has made this request attending the roundtable discussion on food security in the COP27 Conference on Climatic Changes being held in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt today. President Ranil Wickremesinghe has also reiterated the need to speedily draft a sustainable loan relief plan with the objective of consolidating global food security. He has also pointed out that the plan will have to be prepared by February of next year and implemented by the end of first quarter of next year. The President has also cautioned that in the event of failure on the implementation of the plan, the damages on political and social structures in the relevant countries would be irreparable. The President has also said by today, nearly 1 billion of the world population is suffering from hunger. According to the International Monetary Fund, the livelihood of over 300 million people is in jeopardy. He has further stated that there are countries clearly affected by the crisis. The two groups of countries facing the threat could be identified as countries which continue to remain lacking food and the other group of countries which are unable to produce food on their own due to the spiraling expenses, making it impossible for them to purchase food. There are also countries which are unable to face the high costs despite having traditionally affordable food supply. The President also said that Sri Lanka has been been obstructed recently in its quest to produce food due to the fertilizer crisis. He added that, however, the country was able to secure the support of the international community to purchase fertilizer stocks via the government-implemented joint mechanism on food security. The IMF has estimated that it would be difficult to withstand the increasing food and fertilizer costs. The President has further pointed out that it appears that there are no common plans or a central point to effectively face the situation. He added that the hub should be formulated through joint efforts of the United Nations, the Food and Agriculture Organization, the World Food Programme, the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. The President has further stated that it is extremely important to prepare a mid-term plan which guarantees global food security at the upcoming COP28 conference. Minister of Environment Nasir Ahmed and President's Senior Advisor on Climatic Changes Ruwan Wijewardena have also participated at the meeting. Well, world leaders met in Egypt for the second day of the United Nations Climate Change Conference 2022, also known as the COP27.
The UN's annual climate summit opened in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt yesterday. President Ranil Wickremesinghe also took part in the summit, which is scheduled to last for 2 weeks. This year, the summit will be focusing on 4 areas of the climate crisis: mitigation, adaptation, finance and collaboration. COP26, which took place last year in the Scottish city of Glasgow, resulted in Glasgow Pact, which committed participants to lower carbon emissions. However, the UN has given a warning that the world is doomed unless a historic pact is signed between rich and poor countries. The UN has indicated that the progress on cutting the emissions that cause global warming has been woefully inadequate since COP26 in Glasgow last year. The planet has already warmed 1.1 Celsius since pre-industrial times, and scientists say the rises must be limited to 1.5 Celsius by 2100 to avoid the worst effects. But experts predict carrying on with the current policies would lead to a rise as high as 2.8 Celsius this century. Meanwhile, poor countries are pushing for financial compensation from rich countries responsible for most historical emissions. The UN Climate Summit in Egypt was kicked off with an agreement to discuss the compensating poor nations for mounting damage linked to global warming, placing the controversial topic on the agenda for the first time since climate talks began decades ago. Despite increased momentum to address loss and damage due to rising climate change-fueled disasters, COP27 faces headwinds to raising cash, with Western governments' budgets depleted from huge spending to shield their citizens from economic fallout of the war in Ukraine. So far, only 2 small countries have offered funding for loss and damage. Denmark committed 100 million Danish crowns and Scotland pledged $2.28 million. By comparison, research suggests climate-linked losses could reach $580 billion per year by 2030.
A meeting between President Ranil Wickremesinghe and British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who are attending the COP27 conference on climatic changes, has taken place at Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt today. President Wickremesinghe has first of all congratulated Mr. Sunak on being appointed as the post of Prime Minister. Thereafter, the 2 heads of state were engaged in cordial discussions. Later on, the President called on the President of Slovenia, Borut Pahor, and engaged in a friendly dialogue. The Minister of Environment, Nasir Ahmed, and President's Senior Advisor on Climatic Changes, Ruwan Wijewardena, have also participated at this discussion. Well, the Il Full Moon Poe Day, which records many important incidents in the Sasana history, falls today.
Today also marks the end of the Katina Chivara month. According to the Buddhist history, it was also on Poya Day like today that the Lord Buddha had commenced the first Dharmadutta mission. Receiving Niyata Vivarana from the Maitri Bodhisattva, the Lord Buddha meeting, the Thun Bear Jatila, Lord Buddha's visit to the Uruvela Danawa, as well as the passing away of the Arahat Sarayut Mahathera had also been reported to be taken place on an Il Full Moon Poya Day. An Il Full Moon Poya Day Dhamma sermon organised by the Prime Minister's office was held at the Temple Trees this morning under the direction of the Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena. The Dhamma sermon was delivered by the Senasanadipati of the Buddhanagala Aranya in Ampara, the Venerable Digavapia Susima Tero. The Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation has telecast live throughout the day today the Il Full Moon Poya Day by Sri Saddharma Varsha religious program from the Henavatta Sri Vivekarama Purana Mahavihare in Angoda. The program included silk campaign, Buddha pujas, Dhamma sermons and Dhamma discussions. Our correspondent says that all places of Buddhist religious worship were filled with devotees who were attending special religious observances.
Well, the Sri Lanka Army says that 33 detainees at the Kandakaru Treatment and Rehabilitation Centre continue to remain missing. Army media spokesman Brigadier Ravi Herat says that the situation at the centre is now peaceful. The President has instructed the relevant authorities to hand him over a complete report on the incident. Well, the Commissioner General of Rehabilitation, Major General Darshana Hettiarachchi, says the detainees had assaulted the staff which attempted to settle the crisis. There have also been reports of attempting to snatch weapons from the arms depot in the camp compound. However, the Army controlled the situation by firing into the air. 6 of the injured inmates are receiving treatment at the Polonnaru General Hospital. An Army officer is also among the injured undergoing treatment. Hospital sources say that their condition is not serious. Some of those involved in the clash were seen behaving unruly in the premises till noon today. Later on, the Army and the police had conducted them and entered the premises. It has also been stated that at the time of the incident, there were 547 detainees at the rehabilitation centre. 218 inmates who did not take part in the attack were transferred to the Senapura camp. Some detainees had fled the scene but later on surrendered to the police at roadblocks set up by the police. The number of those surrendered is 211 and 80 of them have been placed in a section in the rehabilitation centre itself. The Army believes that 33 missing inmates would surrender themselves. The reason for the dispute is reported to be lengthening of an altercation between the two inmates last night. Later on, the detainees divided into two groups and attacked each other. Further investigations are being conducted. Commissioner General of Rehabilitation Major General Darshana Hettiarachchi says that damages have been caused to several buildings by throwing stones. However, the loss could not be evaluated exactly at the moment. A windscreen of a bus parked at the rehabilitation center was smashed. The Commissioner General of Rehabilitation further said that most of the inmates are those who had been addicted to drugs for a long period. He further said that their aim is to bring these groups into the correct path. Meanwhile, President Ranil Wickremesinghe has ordered a comprehensive report on the Kandakadu Treatment and Rehabilitation Centre after having a discussion with Minister Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa.
The program to provide 10 litres of petrol for passenger transport three-wheelers registered in the Western Province has commenced today. However, some registered three-wheeler owners said that they have not yet received the increased fuel quota. The three-wheelers have so far been receiving only 5 litres of petrol under the fuel quota. The three-wheeler unions have been requesting continuously to receive the increased quota. The President, at a recent discussion, has been instructed to hand over the added quota for passenger transport three-wheelers. The program has got underway from the Western Province and the vehicles were registered via online. Some three-wheelers said that they have not yet received the 10 litres of fuel. The registration of passenger transport three-wheelers is scheduled to be carried out in other provinces in the island as well. 10 suspects with 331 kilograms of heroin were nabbed in the Hambantota Sea yesterday.
In fact, the value of the contraband is reported to be exceeding 6,622 million. It has also been reported that narcotics valued over 23 billion rupees have been apprehended by the Sri Lankan Navy this year. Well, the culprits have been apprehended in a joint operation conducted by the Sri Lankan Navy, the Police Special Task Force and the Police Anti-Narcotics Bureau. The suspects were reported to be residents of Dikpalla, Nilvalla and Kottegoda. The Navy says the owner of the craft is also among the arrested suspects. Investigations have revealed that the craft has commenced journey from the Devinura Fisheries Harbour.
Sri Lanka cricket has imposed an immediate ban on Danushka Gunathilaka, preventing him from participating in any form of cricket matches. Danushka Gunathilaka was produced before court in Sydney, Australia as an accused of several offences today. However, his bail application was rejected by the court. Accordingly, Gunathilaka continues to remain in custody. He was arrested yesterday morning on charges of sexual assault while engaging in the T20 World Cup cricket tournament. The Australian media reports say Danushka Gunathilaka was arrested on a complaint filed by a female and that he was dating with the woman for several days over social websites. The reports further say the disgraced cricketer had met her at her residence in Rose Bay in Sydney City. Danushka has been charged on 4 accounts of sexual assault. Former head of the legal division of the Sri Lanka cricket, Chanaka Senanayake, says that the bail application was refused as Gunathilaka is a foreigner and that he did not carry a visa permit to stay in Australia.
Bail application refused kara.
Former head of the legal division of the Sri Lanka cricket, Chanaka Senanayake, said that the bail application was refused citing flight risk. The reason being he doesn't have a visa and he is not a permanent resident or a citizen. The former Sri Lanka cricket legal officer also said that they are going to appeal and that the process would take at least 1 week. He added that lawyer Ananda Amaranayaka is taking measures to file the bail application within 48 hours. Mr. Senanayake also said that they are also hoping to solicit cooperation of Attorney General of the New South Wales named Grack. The next date of the trial is the 12th of January. In all likelihood, the case may drag for some time. Yet the case is scheduled to be taken up for hearing on next Wednesday to rectify certain problems. The case has to be submitted to a higher court and a verdict is not possible until at least 1 year. It has also been reported that Danushka Gunathilaka will be directed to a rehabilitation centre for a period of 5 days. However, counsel appearing for Gunathilaka said that they are hoping to submit a bail application in this regard to a higher court.
කරපු කාලයක් ඇදිලා යනවා.
Meanwhile, Secretary to the Ministry of Sports, Dr. Amal Harsha De Silva, said that all expenses involved in litigation in Australia will be recovered from Gunathilaka.
I think Danushka Gunathilaka's issue has brought a lot of disrepute for Sri Lanka, and we are monitoring the situation now, and our minister is also closely monitoring what's happening over in Australia. We heard the last development is that he had been refused bail since he is a foreign citizen. Now our embassy over in Australia and the foreign ministry is monitoring the situation, and of course we are trying to see as to how we could settle this issue, and also not to interfere with the legal system, but of course represent him legally and then to sort this problem out. And as we know, Australia is a great country, and then Sri Lanka has had is having good bilateral relations with Australia. But basically it's a very bad thing to see that national player approved by the ministry and representing the country resorting to this type of unnecessary bad activities, and then ultimately the whole country suffers because of that. Now our minister has given me the directive to take immediate action against this player, and then also to do investigations against the cricket board and to take remedial measures to prevent this type of things happening in the future. Therefore I think we are taking this very serious. We are right now, he is a suspect only. He had not been found guilty, but of course since he is only a suspect, we are trying to do our level best to represent him legally, and then we will take action against the unnecessary activities that he has been up to in Australia.
Mahela Jayawardena, who has returned to the island, has expressed regret over the incident. He said that this unfortunate incident, and he added that normally they as a team always try to behave lawfully as much as possible in a foreign land and to return. Under such circumstances, it is extremely regretting to find a cricketer behaving in this manner. The Sri Lanka cricket team, which took part in the T20 World Cup cricket tournament, returned to the island this morning. Sri Lanka was adjudged the fourth place in the first category of the T20 World Cup cricket tournament.
Well, farmers accuse that although the government has set up many paddy storages, most of them are not being used. They further say that if these depots are being effectively used, there is no room for the rice mafia of the private traders to create a rice shortage in the country. Well, in Sri Lanka, 750,000 hectares of land come under paddy cultivation in the Maha season, and further 500,000 hectares in the Yalla season. The Paddy Marketing Board purchases only 10% of the harvest. The board could store 325,000 metric tons of paddy in 356 depots in 19 districts. Only 150,000 metric tons of paddy in the Yalla season was stored in government storages. Farmers say the reason being the private sector purchasing paddy at a higher price on a competitive basis. Large-scale purchasing enables the private sector to build a rice monopoly. When the national television inquired from the PMB on the issue, it said no financial allocations are being made for paddy purchasing. The board is receiving loans on a rate of interest of 28% from the banks to purchase paddy harvest of farmers. Higher interest rates compels them to sell rice at high prices. However, Satosa and cooperatives continue to provide rice at concessionary prices to the consumers.
The Minister of Agriculture says measures will be taken to provide insecticides and weedicides to the farmers from the agrarian centres at a price below the current market prices. The minister at a meeting with the farmers' representatives said that the program has been formulated upon discussions with all private companies engaged in distribution of insecticides and weedicides. The farmers are able to purchase the items 5 to 6% below the company prices for their paddy and other cultivations. They could be purchased from 566 agrarian services developed centres throughout the island. State Minister of Finance Ranjit Siyamalapitiya says graduates in state service should be recruited for the vacancies in the departments of Customs, Excise and Inland Revenue. The enrolments are to be carried out with the approval of the Cabinet and Public Services Commission through a competitive examination without violating the service charter of relevant departments. There are 773 vacancies in the departments of the Sri Lanka Customs and 434 in the Inland Revenue Department and 331 in the Excise Department.
State Minister of Finance Ranjit Simalapati said that there is no room whatsoever to recruit new employees according to a ministerial circular and the prevailing situation in the country, as there is an immediate need to activate these institutions. It has been decided to give an opportunity for the graduates to enter the field by facing a competitive examination.
Several news items regarding numerous meritorious acts reported from many parts of the island we bring you now. Chief incumbent of the Purvaramaya West in Hiniduma Gaul, Venerable Happitiye Sumanathero, has been handed over the position of secondary Sanganayaka of the Gaul and Mathura with the honorary title of Saddharmakirti Sri Vajirangana, the Malvatu chapter of the Siam Nikaya. Presentation of Sannaspatra in this regard has taken place at Uposatagare of the Malvatu Mahavihare recently. Main enclosure with a Samadhi Buddha statue and shrine room constructed at a cost of 40 million rupees at the Sri Jinendra Rama Vihare, Colombo 7 were vested with the Mahasangha recently. The Mahasangha, headed by the chief incumbent of the Vihare and the Venerable Muruthetwe Anandathero, as well as devotees, graced the occasion. The annual Katina Mahapinkama of the Negro Dharama Vihare in Kottava was conducted recently. The Mahasangha, headed by the chief incumbent of the Vihare, participated in the event. Annual Katina Mahapinkama of the Korea Sri Lanka Mahavihare was held at the Vihare in South Korea recently. Reconstructed pinnacle of the Ratna Udagama Sri Shailataramathera Mahavihare in Ratgama Gaul was unveiled recently under the patronage of the chief incumbent of the Vihare, the Venerable Rajgama Sri Sumangalathera. A pinkama to colour Katina robe was held at the Aloka Raja Mahavihare in Neluva Kurunagala recently. The ceremony was held under the leadership of the chief incumbent of the Vihare, the Venerable Vembuave Devamitta Thera. A newly constructed house was handed over to a poor family in Badal Kumala in Monaragala. A sapling of the Jayashree Ma Bodhi Anuradhapura was planted at the premises of the Horana Base Hospital recently. The annual Katina Mahapinkama of Maryland Buddhist Vihare in the United States was held recently under the direction of the chief incumbent of the Vihare, the Venerable Katugasthara Uparatana Thera.
Now, this group of students have not taken less facilities as an excuse, but they have definitely pursued Dhamma education. So this is that special story about 50 students who are receiving education in a Dhamma school located at a provisional building in Passara. There are only 6 teachers and a building has a roof only on one side. In rainy days, the school is being transferred to a building of the Buddhist shrine room. Villagers request the authorities to have a permanent building as well.
The magistrate of Mannar has ordered to place under detention 14 Indian fishermen taken into custody in Talaimanna Sea in the last Saturday till the 17th of this month. This group was engaged in illegal poaching in 2 craft in the Sri Lankan seas were handed over to the Navy camp in Talaimanna yesterday morning. They were produced before the courts today through mediation of the Ministry of Fisheries.
Well, D.B. Jayatilaka, the first representative of Sri Lanka to India, unveiled at the High Commission of Sri Lanka in New Delhi. Well, a bust of Sir D.B. Jayatilaka, the first representative of Sri Lanka to India, commissioned by the High Commission of Sri Lanka in New Delhi in a bid to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Sri Lanka sending her first representative to India way back in 1942, was ceremonially unveiled today. The few former High Commissioners of India to Sri Lanka family members, 2 former Indian commissioners to Colombo, and 2 Deputy High Commissioners of India who had served Sri Lanka joined Sri Lanka's High Commissioner to India, Milinda Moragada, in unveiling the bust at the ceremony held at the High Commission premises this morning. The unveiling of the bust of Sir D.B. Jayatilaka marked the latest of series of activities organized by the High Commission to commemorate the 80th anniversary of Sri Lanka sending its first representative to India. Early in February, the High Commission named its Chancery building after Sir D.B. Jayatilaka, and in August, a portrait of Sir Baron was unveiled at the High Commission. Well, that's the local stories, and we take a short break and we'll be back with international stories shortly.
And to bring you foreign news now, the death toll from yesterday's plane crash in Lake Victoria, Tanzania has jumped to 19. The plane, which departed from the commercial capital Dar es Salaam, crashed while attempting to land during stormy weather. 43 people, including 39 passengers, 2 pilots and 2 cabin crew, were on board the plane. 26 survivors had been pulled to safety and taken to hospital in Bukoba, a lakeside city in Kagera region. Egypt lit up Kafir Pyramid, one of the 3 ancient pyramids of Giza that dates back 4,500 years ahead of the climate summit COP27.
Prima Stella Set Yogurt.
ජය ගන්න වැඩි වෙන්න.
Welcome back to the sports news. And with the cricketing excitement coming to a close with the World Cup, we're now going to focus on football. Are you a football fan? I'm sure you are. And we just have 13 days to go for the FIFA World Cup football tournament. And that's commencing on the 20th. And also the good news is that the national television is going to be the holder of the broadcaster rights. So we have more news on that.
The finals of the tournament will be played at the Lusail Iconic Stadium in Qatar. The stadium was officially declared open on the 22nd of November 2021 after the commencement of the construction in 2017. This is the largest stadium in Qatar, which could accommodate 80,000 spectators.
Prima Stella Set Yogurt.
ජය ගන්න වැඩි වෙන්න.
80,000 spectators in one single stadium. That's very interesting. And we're looking forward to a lot of footballing action. So this is where we end the news together with Sharon. This is Clifford wishing you a good night and enjoy the rest of the programs.